I think we'll need a minute more for technology to settle down. What's the situation? Somebody put an air gap on your projector?
Actually, technology and tariff both are very disruptive now.
Yeah. I have yet to discover perfect technology for presentations.
No.
कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ होगा.
Here I think somebody has pulled the plug.
वो ऐसे ही होता है.
Okay, but I think in the interest of time, we'll start right away, and I'll start by thanking Amitesh Sinha, CEO India Semiconductor Mission, for taking our time and being here. We deeply appreciate the fact that he has been able to make it today, and he has just taken over office very recently, but that doesn't mean he's a new hand in semiconductors or at MeitY. We from the industry are extremely glad that he has come back to MeitY and taken up this charge. It's a very positive note for the semiconductor and electronics industry, and we deeply appreciate that. I'll request Advocate Baldesai ji to greet Mr. Sinha with a bouquet. Manoj? Yes. Thank you. So while we are still struggling to get the presentation up and have the silicon settle down, no, I think it did. We'll quickly go through how this the next 2 hours will be conducted. We'll have a short presentation of the compilation of all the issues that have been brought in by those who are sitting on this table. Then we'll have the chair's initial reflections and sharing with us the initiatives that the government has already taken. We'll then move to a detail of some of the issues, wherein the speakers will be taking about 10 minutes each to talk about the details of those issues. And we'll have Sanjeev Keskarji managing that. And then we'll go around the table to the rest of the delegates to have their interventions. Next slide, please. The objectives of the roundtable is that in the fast-changing global geoeconomics, what are the tactical steps required to be taken by the industry and by the government to accelerate the movement of electronics and semiconductor supply chain from China to India? We are not beating around the bush, we're only talking about China, because that's where most of the manufacturing is happening, and to position India as the leader in the trusted supply chain partnership.
Sorry.
I think that's a Chinese semiconductor being used.
Yes. All the data is going back.
Absolutely. And then know when to do that attack that you were talking about, Ajay.
Yeah.
So anyways, sorry?
China doesn't make much of the semiconductor.
It's always good to blame someone. Otherwise you don't get the juices up.
And when there is acceptance.
There's acceptance, yeah. No, but they are a serious part of the electronics supply chain, and they're fast moving into semiconductors. Second part is how can industry leverage the new PLI scheme to make India a significant player in electronic components, thereby enlarging the ecosystem for semiconductors, and what are the challenges and bottlenecks for the gases and chemicals ecosystem for semiconductors. And therefore looking at the first issue, which is policy and regulatory reforms for raw materials and chemical inputs, counter unfair pricing and dumping of bulk chemical imports. That is being done by China. They are targeting which are the chemicals which, if they get control of, we will not have complete control over supply chain. In fact, recently I was giving a talk at the Foreign Institute, the Indian Foreign Institute, which is called the Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign services, and I just put 3 pictures of the US putting in tariffs in China, China stopping the export of their magnets, US backing down and agreeing to a trade agreement because most of the US automobile industry was brought down to the knees. And 2 days later, China allowing the magnets to be exported again. The point is that that kind of magnet is only $70 billion exports. But that $70 billion brought in the entire automobile industry of US. And automobile industry contributes to 20% of the economy. So you see, we need to be very careful about this small little, as we call it, because of the nail, the battle was lost, right? Because the nail could not be put under the horse shoe and so on and so forth, and the horse became limp and the general died. So we need to make sure that we've got complete supply chain resilience. Second, reforms to streamline approvals for chemicals sector projects, enhancing operational efficiency and reducing delays. Keeping in mind that that's not really what under the allocation of business rules of MATI, but yes, from a whole of government approach, that's something we need to keep in mind as we move forward. Develop and implement targeted policies to build domestic capabilities in specialty chemicals and high purity materials, reducing import dependence. Next slide. Component manufacturing and semiconductor development, introduce targeted schemes and incentives for domestic manufacturing of IC components and so on and so forth. Since the delegates here will be going into detail, so I'll not go into any further detail. Define India's strategic role within global semiconductor and electronics value chain. There are views and points that we may not be at every part of the value chain, and therefore which part should we be in. Extend PLI schemes explicitly to indigenous semiconductor and hardware OEMs to boost domestic output. Establish a domestic display fabrication industry through targeted ISM incentives. There are some displays that are getting manufactured, but more needs to be done. Component manufacturing and semiconductor development. This has been repeated umpteen number of times, and it's a problem that we continue to look at, solve step by step, and it's still more needs to be done. Facilitate matchmaking between global display tech providers and Indian corporates. Support a technology neutral approach to display technologies. Strengthen upstream and midstream display supply chain infrastructure by leveraging synergies from semiconductor ecosystem investments. Then design, prototyping and infrastructure development, again something that's well known to everybody on the table. Establish a formal original design and manufacturing policy framework to facilitate easier funding for electronic design. Adopt public policy partnership models to develop affordable plug-and-play electronics manufacturing service clusters. Create shared infrastructure for critical testing of EMI, EMC, and CNC prototyping, and so on and so forth. Similar to what we are doing in the skill development centers that were created earlier. Address limitations in current PLI structures such as high turnover and capex thresholds by introducing co-investment models, shared clusters and tax relief to attract global investment. Next slide. Supply chain security and procurement. Secure national supply chains for essential BIOS, firmware and hardware components. Again, something that is being talked for 22 years now, because that's where the vulnerability is really coming from. To introduce current investments and eliminate all obstacles in an efficient supply chain, connectivity of hazardous goods, sea liner, local logistics, warehouse, and so on and so forth. Enforce MATI procurement guidelines on platforms like GEM. In fact, MATI also had a model RFP on which I believe Accenture had put together again about 9-10 years back. Perhaps we can go back and look at those model RFPs. Next slide. Is that the last slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So those are the issues that those who are present on this table would like to discuss today. With that, I'll hand over the podium in that sense to Amitay Sinhaji. Over to you. You can use this mic.
Good afternoon to all of you, and thanks for inviting me here today. I have noted the points highlighted here for today's discussion, and I have bifurcated those points into 5 sections. First is related with government initiatives, PLI, semiconductors, deepening of value chain, components, etc. Second is towards this material, chemicals, supply chain required for semiconductors. Third is for skilling, the efforts we are putting in for skilling. Then the ODM policy, or the focus on product development. And then development of indigenous firmware, embedded software is required for that. So I will start with the government initiative that we have taken to promote semiconductor and electronics manufacturing in India. And in that process, I will touch upon the points already pinpointed for today's discussion. So we all know that in last 10 years we have achieved significantly. And if I say that in production the numbers have increased 4.6 times. In mobile production number have increased 21 times. In exports in 10 years we have increased 6.8 times. And in mobile exports it is 92 times. So we have now manufacturing 138 billion of electronics. And out of that 62 billion is from mobile. And on export front we are doing 39 billion of electronics exports, including almost 24 billion of mobile exports. So this is the current status, and we believe that this journey will continue. We are seeing that 15 to 16% CAGR we are witnessing in electronics, and roughly double of that 32% around in exports. So this is happening, and we believe that this should continue. Regarding strategic shift to catalyze more and more shifting of supply chain from China to India, at this juncture we all know that the global politics is taking a different shape. USA is coming with a new tariffs arrangement, and it is varying on weekly or monthly basis also. So today I think the best way to handle this situation is to just keep quiet and do your homework, and once the BTA or FTA will be done, then these things will be sorted out. If this particular piece of agreement with the USA in the form of BTA or bilateral trade agreement or free trade agreement is done, then the supply chain shifting from China to India will further accelerate. Without that also it is happening, and for that government has come up with various kind of incentive schemes and promotional schemes. So that will continue, because US is not the only place where our exports are going, but certainly it's a very big market to eye for. We are also entering into similar kind of FTA and BTA with the European countries, and day by day we are seeing a progress, and that progress is smooth and in a structural way it is happening. So we have identified and we have learned from the earlier lesson that FTAs was not very welcome earlier, but we have seen the progress of Vietnam, that they have taken the benefit of FTAs, and their manufacturing has increased a lot. So very calibrated way we will also try to see those countries where FTA or BTA is not harmful for our domestic industry, and I believe that from developed country like USA or Europe, our industry is not going to be disturbed if we take certain careful decisions on that regard. As you know that to further shift from China to India, we have already taken come up with some PLI schemes for large electronics, including mobile. Then there was this fixed scheme for component deepening of component ecosystem. In that, semiconductors was also part of that. Then PLI IT hardware came. Then it was revised, PLI IT hardware 2.0 came. Recently we have come with the component PLI scheme, which is now open for participation. And as somebody told that almost 80 applications have been submitted, and since the time is still there, so we expect that the serious players will now come and submit their application. So that is also happening. So all the efforts are taken for deepening of value chain. That is the most that is a big problem for all of us, that we are doing only assembling, but our value chain is not increasing. But this value chain will increase with first is design. So for design, we will discuss separately. But in semiconductors, of course, we are pushing design with designing incentive scheme where the startups are coming to front. Almost 18 applications have been approved in different sectors: automotive, automotive telecommunication, logic, sensors, all those areas they are covering, and more applications are under pressure. Further, we will try to improve our DLI scheme to allow big players also in that, domestic players, to come up with a design thing. Apart from that, in value chain, design is the most important thing, I say. And after that, manufacturing. We all are eyeing for semiconductor fab manufacturing, and packaging is also part of that. So for fab, we have given together in Semicon India program that we have launched in 2022. So 3 years have passed, and 6 approvals have been given, one for Tata Fab. So Tata Fab will concentrate on logic, power chips, and display driver ICs. So I am particularly taking the name of display driver IC because display is one of the items for today's discussion. So Tata is one company. Then Tata is also setting up OSAT in Assam and Fab in Kolkata. Then apart from that, 4 packaging proposals are also there. One is Micron for memory. Other 2 are for packaging OSAT, and the 4th one is recently we have given approval to HCL and Foxconn. So they will also do packaging, but they are in on assembly side of display. So display ICs will be manufactured by Tata, and display assembly will be done by HCL Foxconn. But there are certain missing links which need to be complete the ecosystem of display. And if we are seeing the value chain, then design, we have covered semiconductor design, the semiconductor fab, and then packaging. Now moving to other components which is required for that, the component scheme or PLI 2.0 structure is also like that, which is promoting components, deepening of components. So more and more components will be integrated to IT hardware, more and more incentive will be available. So these are the efforts for completely increasing value chain, and there was also one point that we are not considering R&D efforts or not counting R&D efforts in value chain or GCC presence in value chain. So on that direction we will take some effort. But if you see the recent CCTV framework for value addition, in that R&D and design both have been included. So efforts have started in that direction, and more products will be taken to include such kind of thing, if we believe that really these things are happening in India. Public procurement order was there in 2017. It has been revised many times in last year 2024. I know that there are always complaints against that even if government policy is there, the ministries, departments or organizations are not following it fully. And the process is not very transparent because of the specifications are not mentioned correctly, or there is an attempt to neglect certain domestic companies in that. And we also received some complaint in METI also. So whenever we receive complaint, we try to mention or tell those organizations or departments or ministry that please correct your tender specifications. But this is a problem, and gradually more and more awareness is required on public procurement point of view. And this is the role of industry also to pinpoint wherever they think that there is injustice or unnecessary complication on the front of the specifications or turnover or other parameters. So we will work on that. That is a thing which will be evolving in future also, and we will work on that. Compulsory registration order is also an effort on that, because many cheap items, particularly for dumping purposes, it will come to the country, and we will not be able to handle that. So compulsory registration order is just a mechanism to ensure that no substandard items are there. And generally when cheap items are dumped or exported to India, generally they lack quality also. So it has covered around 64 items in CRO, and more items are included wherever it has become necessary. So recently we have seen that for a battery also, lithium-ion cells, and for security guidelines regarding IoT devices, these things are covered, will be covered in the CRO, and almost 64 items are already covered there. For display ecosystem, which is a need of the hour also, and all our devices need display. So there is a provision in this scheme for setting up a fab for display manufacturing. So last time the proposals were received, but those proposals were not able to meet the eligibility criteria of the guidelines. Therefore, we will not approve. But effort is still on, and matchmaking from government side is also that effort is also on. So we hope that in next Semicon 2.0, we will see some display fab coming in India. And obviously the demand is on the two sides, with LCD display as well as OLED. So let's see that how companies are coming with their proposal. So our aim is to establish this display ecosystem also. In materials, gases, chemicals, this is a very important thing, particularly for semiconductor connector manufacturing. And why the other players are not coming to India, particularly the tier 1 player. This is the main reason. And they always talk about ecosystem, and ecosystem consists of many things, including availability of chemical gases and materials. So in the best way to attract any kind of investment in any field is creation of demand. So creation of demand, if you see our economy, then there is a creation of demand. But if we see semiconductor industry, then there was no creation of demand, there was no demand. But after giving approval to 6 companies, now demand is generated, is being generated. And after seeing this demand, many companies are now interested in investing in setting up their manufacturing plant for material, chemical and gases. Particularly I am seeing Japanese company and Taiwanese company, they are much more serious than other companies. So to further accelerate this process, we will try to come up with Semicon 2.0, in which ecosystem development items like incentive for equipment manufacturing, chemical, gases, materials, will try to include all these things. And timeline of next Semicon policy cannot be given at this point of time, but probably around October we will try to come with that. So we have started targeting companies who can set up their manufacturing unit in India for supplying these material, chemical gases. And I also request all industry players here also to propagate this message, to tell such interested players. Semicon, 4th edition of Semicon conference, Semicon India conference will happen at Delhi from 2nd September to 4th September. So almost 1,000 to 1,200 companies will participate. So that is also a good forum for a tie-up with the local manufacturers and foreign manufacturers. And particularly I have seen that the Japanese and Taiwanese companies, they are looking for some good credible Indian partners. So I think effort should be there from our side also, and there are very good companies in India. And it is not that in chemical and gases we are totally dependent on outside. There are many things which is available in India. For example, I will say that if you see the gases, so oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, argon, carbon dioxide, the purity level is exactly matching with the semiconductors. So these things are manufactured and supplied in India. In chemicals also, hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, phosphoric acid, acetic acid, ammonia, hydrogen peroxide, ethanol, acetone, all these things are manufactured and produced in India, and that is of semiconductor purity grade. So the company are sourcing these materials from Indian suppliers, and when I tell Indian suppliers, I mean that including MNCs who have set up their facilities in India. So Indian players, I will take some name like Inox, BASF, Linde, Air Liquide, Dow Chemicals, Solvay India, Cabot India, Vicar Jambi, Gujarat Gas, Gastel India. All these companies are there who are producing this kind of chemical and gases. But certainly there are more specific chemical and gases. For that effort is required, and for that this Semicon 2.0 scheme will try to support all kind of left out things. In scaling, understanding fully that we have a demographic dividend coming in our way, and the median age is 28.8 years in comparison of 40 years of China. So definitely we can take advantage of that. And we have 10 million STEM graduates are there. Out of that, 8.4 million is undergrads are there. Almost 0.72 million postgraduates and 1,30,000 around PhDs are there. So we have a talent pool and very capable talent pool. Only we have to give a required skill set, either to go for designing or for publication or for packaging or for other research in materials and other things. So when this journey started with participation of industry, a talent committee was formed. The talent committee produced a report. That report was also considered by AICTE, and AICTE ultimately changed their curriculum, and those curriculums are now implemented in more than 800 colleges for targeting different segments of semiconductors, design, fabrication, packaging and all that. But that is a structural change that has happened, and the result of that will come after 4 years. So the effort has started from 2022. So new batches of undergrads will come in 2026, fully equipped with this kind of knowledge. In between, we need to also have some kind of short courses which can be given to earlier undergrads or postgraduate students. For that, effort is on, and I'll say that complete work has not been done, and there is a missing links there. Though independent efforts are there. One effort is that Lam Research has given a very good tool, which is SemiVerse. It's a virtual fab of 2 nanometers. So the practical problem in the academic institution is non-availability of labs, where students can go and actually see what is they are reading in theory can be implemented. And only IITs and prepared institutions are having that kind of nano lab facility. So this SemiVerse is a kind of a lab, much sophisticated lab that IITs and IICs have. And now Lam Research is giving training to trainers, means professors of academic institutions, and also to support the system. And then they are further going in their colleges, and this tool is provided to them so that they can train their students. So the Lam Research course is very good, and they are targeting 60,000 semiconductor students, and ISC is collaborating with the Lam Research. We are pushing NILIT also, because NILIT is under METI, and a dedicated mandate to NILIT is given to promote semiconductor manufacturing, cyber security, and one more area, AI. So these three things, NILIT has been given mandate to come up with very good courses and skilling thing, and NILIT has started their work. They have taken a land just adjacent to OSAT facility of Tata in Assam. So they are setting up a 10-acre factory, a 10-year institution there for training of students. Now they are also taking land in Tulera, where again they will set up a facility for training. And apart from that, they have a very good design center in Noida, where they are providing all kind of facilities. So that will and that facility will give access to students, including taping out of the chips also. So that they are creating. Our chip to startup program and DLI together, they are also creating knowledge base and training of students. So EDA tools have been provided to 340 institutions and startups. So out of that, 70 is startups and 270 are the colleges where EDA tools have been provided. And CTO's chips to startup scheme is also promoting designing and fabrication of chips by independent colleges. Apart from DLI scheme, the colleges are also taking interest. So in that process, lot of knowledge for designing of chips is happening. So that is also a good thing. Apart from that, we have two structural good MOUs which has not been implemented, I will say. One is from SEMI side and one is from Purdue side. So those MOUs were entered, but now I am hoping that in next coming months, we will try to integrate those curriculum and courses. We will try to see whether NIDET can also do, because they have a digital platform and they are offering their courses. And their courses have become part of the colleges also, AICTE approved colleges, where they will be considered as an elective and their grades will also be added into the colleges. So if the Purdue or semi courses can also be added through the digital platform, then immediately will be accessible to all colleges. And the students can choose on the basis of their field. And these courses will give much confidence to all industry players also, who are looking for a certificate course or a course where they can rely on. So that will also try to integrate. Apart from that, Tata is doing their independent efforts. They are training their engineers in PSMC. In Vemigal, they have a packaging unit where they are training their packaging engineers. In SCL also, they are taking help. There is ASMPT Singapore is there, where Tata is sending. In the Shastra University also there, apart from IIT and IIC, where Tata is trying to train their manpower. Micron is similarly doing in Malaysia. They have also tied up with Purdue and Namtek universities. And in addition, SCL, IIT and ITI also, they are targeting. Similarly, CG Power is taking care of Renesas Civil Technology partner in Japan, Star Microelectronics, and they are also sending their engineers to Malaysia. Keynes is also taking care of ASMPT Singapore and other IIT Gandhinagar, IIT Bombay and BITS Pilani. Similarly, they are all doing. Recently, when I was posted a few months back, last month I came here. So at Bangalore, I saw Tata factory at Hosur and interacted with the management team also. So now they are doing precision engineering, training for the precision engineering, which is a need of the hour. Because when you enter into sophisticated components manufacturing, then without precision engineering, nothing is possible. Similarly, this kind of culture is also developed by applied material and land research also, because they are sourcing a lot of components from India now, and they have identified significant number of players in India. I will say that 60-70 Indian manufacturers in component manufacturing have been identified by them together for sourcing of components from India. So there also the precision engineering thing is coming, and Tata is also trying to come up with a structural program to give precision engineering training. So I have requested them that why not you are opening up for others also. So after meeting your requirement or whatever, you should open it for the country, so that this kind of a big institution can come on this kind of thing. But many efforts are required, because I was privy to one discussion with Chairman Foxconn, in which they were telling that they alone, Foxconn alone, did training of 1 crore of Chinese nationals in precision engineering. Altogether, they did 10 crores of training in different capacities, but 1 crore was dedicated to precision engineering. And without that very technologically critical components, it is very difficult to manufacture. So that thing we will also try to push this precision engineering. It is a very, very important thing. Regarding development of product, which is an area we all know that we have our engineers, design engineers working for other companies, but we don't own any company. So owning of a company, indigenous company, is very, very important. And for that, product development is very critical. Few initiatives I can see, I can tell, but that is not sufficient. In designing of chips, the DRI scheme is promoting startups, and further it will be expanded for Indian companies. So once you have control on design, then you have control on the entire value chain. So that is one model. Then in BI IT hardware also, we try to give incentive for designing of semiconductor items related with memory, related with other components, display also. So there we have given incentive for designing, then manufacturing, and then assembly. Independently also you can take incentive. So government has now started taking decision in that direction, but that effort is not complete. I think maybe after some time, because a lot of incentives on PLIs have been announced by government, now the next turn will be coming for product design. So in that we can define value chain, what value addition is happening, and on the basis of that incentive can be increased This idea has not been discussed with anybody. So again, my thought after discussing with some industry players that maybe we can target this kind of thing also next year after the current pay rise and everything will settle down. So product design and product development all together, and depending upon value addition, we can try for some kind of incentives. And then this new initiative of government to provide 1 lakh crore corpus is again a very good initiative where a lot of deep tech or technology sunrisers can take help, and I expect Ajay Chaudhary sir will give some light on that because he is one of the anchor of that scheme. So that is also again a very good scheme. One point where I cannot give much input right now because nothing has been done on that front is development of indigenous firmware, embedded Linux platform, something like that. That is the area where a lot of work is required from our side. Many times it was thought, some efforts were taken, but we could not produce a product which can ultimately replace these things. In government, we are taking conscious decision to replace few of the items where we are doing daily work and or store our data or something like that. So that is a top level thing. But the platforms where they rest and other things, there again some efforts are needed, and I am open to the idea of this house. If something will come up, then we can work on that also. So with this, I close my initial remarks here, and let's see. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amitesh ji. I think this is so much music to the ear to hear about very fundamental changes being brought in, and absolutely stellar examples of government, academia, and industry working together. All the training initiatives that you mentioned, they are perfect coordination between all three bodies that we have been theoretically talking about. Now it's bearing fruit. So there's a lot that the industry also needs to contribute, and that's something that you laid out in your observations. So with that, we move to the delegates on the table. Shall we start with you then? And you'll also coordinate the other interventions from EPIC. So Sanjeev Keskar is from EPIC, and he'll coordinate the conversations from the other 2 or 3 delegates. Let's try and keep it as short as possible. Can the microphone be handed over?
Good afternoon, everyone. Amirji, thank you very much. I think the amount of initiatives MIT has taken in last 5 to 10 years for this sector, both semiconductor and electronics, is definitely phenomenal. We have never seen so much of activity in this particular industry. Next slide, please. I'm just going to share 4 slides. This is a global overview of semiconductor industry. As per McKinsey report, by 2030, global semiconductor industry will be $1 trillion. From $600 billion, it is going to grow to $1 trillion. Typically, semiconductor contributes 25% of electronics. So, global electronics market will be around $4 trillion by 2030. Next slide. As per ISA report, this report was launched by Minister Ashwini Vaishnavji at Odisha just 2 months back. As per this report, sir, India electronics market will be $400 billion by 2030. So India, which was around 5% of the global market 2 years back, will be 10%. When 2030 global will be $4 trillion, India will be $400 billion. So we are one of the fastest growing industry in the world as far as our consumption story is concerned. And then proportionately, India's semiconductor market will be $100 billion when we will reach $400 billion of electronics. Next slide, please. Sir, when we are talking about Atmanirbhar Bharat, we have to really look for the value chain of entire electronics as well as semiconductor. So this let's talk about the value chain. Sir, 50% value is in components, 25% semiconductor, 10 to 15% passive component connector cable, 5 to 7% into bare PCB and electromechanical, all put together around 45 to 50%. Today, our dependency is almost 90% on import. And with ISM policy, with the new component scheme, we are going to address this particular challenge. So the next big value, 30 to 35%, is into IP technology, product innovation, and that's the raise that there is something we have to definitely focus big time, because we are doing all the global projects in India today. All Cisco, Juniper, Bosch, Delphi, Conti, ABB, GE, Honeywell, everyone is doing R&D in India. But we have very few product innovation companies like Tejas Network or Secure Meter or Genus. How we can encourage that value of 30 to 35%? And today we are doing extremely well when it comes to EMS manufacturing. Even with the PLI scheme and the 15% duty on imported assembled PCBA, I think our manufacturing has grown substantially, and that is reflecting. Means Apple, Samsung, Oppo, Vivo, Xiaomi, everyone is doing. Only thing now, mobile phone value addition we have to focus, but with the new display module or camera module manufacturing, that also will evolve. Okay, but that's the value chain of electronics today. Missing piece is product innovation. Component will evolve over next 2 to 3 years. Sir, coming to semiconductor value chain, VLSI design is again a major portion of that value chain. Again, here top 25 semiconductor company we are doing chip design, but in DLI scheme we hardly have 17 application. So we are really hoping for DLI 2.0, where we can have big companies like L&T and other people will contribute to chip design activity. Wafer fabs is another big portion, and ATMP is around 15 to 20%, and balance is wafer fab. Again, with ISM initiative, that ecosystem will evolve. But today that is missing. So the key takeaway is about the electronic product innovation and chip innovation. Next slide, please. This is the last slide. So, sir, great policies. Production link incentive has created a manufacturing ecosystem. We have India Semiconductor Mission, where 6 proposals are already approved, and few more display and other proposals we can expect. DLI scheme, definitely with DLI 2.0 we can expect something better. EMC is a good scheme, and electronic component manufacturing scheme is a fantastic scheme launch. So congratulations to my team. So few suggestions. In ISM, compound semiconductor proposals somehow we have not got, but India priority should be compound semiconductor, because analog, power semiconductor, discrete semiconductor, MOSFET, IGBT, silicon carbide, gallium nitride, that should be. So there has to be a focus initiative to attract those tier 2, tier 3 semiconductor companies under this ISM program. So that is one suggestion, sir. Coming to fabless system, we are really awaiting for DLI 2.0, because current system of $2 million support for design and $4 million support for BLI, okay, is not really, because silicon SoCs are very complex and $2 million is very insufficient. So we require bigger budget in DLI 2.0. Sir, passive component and bare PCB, this new scheme, component manufacturing scheme, 2 suggestions, sir. The approval window or application window is just 3 months. You know, for capacitor, resistor, inductor, transformer, we don't have even the good technology for capacitor. So we will depend on the global collaboration. And in 3 months, getting a collaboration technology partner and submitting application will be a challenge. So that is one suggestion. Second is for few categories like HDI PCB 1000 crore investment limit, or SMD component 250 crore investment, that is on higher side. We should look for lower limits so that more participation will be there, and that is the need of the hour, sir. Today, PCB, as I told, 5 to 7% contribution, then will be $400 billion. Our PCB requirement will be $20 billion plus, and current capacity is only 350 million in India. So we need more and more PCB plants. Okay. Then, sir, coming to the component hub, sir, even after 6 projects will be in full production, the India demand of component will be 150 to 200 billion dollar. So we will address with these 6 plants maybe 10% or 15% of the demand. So again, 85% components will be required to be imported. Sir, today the biggest disparity between China and India is lack of the local warehousing and local component hub. Because China manufacture get just in time every day, whereas we have to stock 1 month inventory in India for any electronic production. And we deal with 10 different countries, 20 different vendors. So, sir, there is a proposal of component hub created in India like Singapore and Hong Kong, where the Indian manufacturers will get complete kit just in time. And we need some special support from IT for this particular proposal. And sir, the last point is about the EMC cluster, Sir Ajay ji has that particular idea like Taiwan. We should create a common facility center or a centralized multi-layer facility which can be leveraged by the entire cluster. So today what's happening that every state is coming up with 100-acre land or 200-acre land, but rather than we should have a flatter structure to really construct a common facility center for electronics manufacturing. So these are some of the suggestions from your side, and thank you for the opportunity. I'll pass it on to Ajay ji.
I think just to take forward this whole EMC area, today we expect different states in different locations to create EMCs. Now they have no connect to logistics. And in electronics, logistics is the super critical issue. So we should be creating EMCs where there is logistics available for in and out of components and equipment. So I think the areas that we select for EMC should be decided at the central government, not at the state government. Because unless you control the location, the cost of logistics will kill us. Okay. So that's part one. Inside an EMC, I think what we should move towards is a model where, see, 99% of component manufacturing in the world is done by SMEs. You look at Taiwan, pretty much everything is SMEs. Now, they don't have the patience to come and construct a plant. So the way it should be done is that we identify area, give it to a developer like L&T. It's already being done in software. Lots and lots of software parks have come up, created by Taiwan, created by Singapore, created by people like L&T. So similar model if we follow, we will be giving flatted factories to people to come and start. So an SME can come and start work in 3 months. Rather than the 2 years it takes for them to get bijli, pani, ye, wo, building, etc., etc. So this will be a great ease of doing business in India, and the ROI for the investor will dramatically improve because in 3 months they can get started. So I think this model needs to be completely redone. This EMC model, 2 ways, location and a flatted factory model. The other part of also looking at what we talked about earlier, the whole idea of design. If you recall, we had a long discussion before you moved out, is that currently we have a great organization like STPI sitting around. Their value has consistently gone down because software is not taking off. So why can't we convert STPI to an HTPI and they can continue to do software, but the same capabilities provided to them because they can easily do customs clearance and all those issues. So we can create design centers and startup villages around each of those STPI locations. Suddenly there will be a plethora of startups and design people created all over the country because the capability exists with STPI. They have their buildings already, and those buildings are no longer so those buildings are no longer really required for software startups anymore. And we have to clearly understand one thing, that there is serious headwinds to software. AI and automation will actually start to lower the software piece. Hardware has to take over. And I think the time has come for design and manufacturing to be taken, and we should become a product nation to be able to actually get the value of our manpower. Our real manpower is, as you rightly said, is in design. So I think these are some of the points that I wanted to mention. A couple of points that were talked about by you in terms of procurement. It's a very, very serious concern today. It just doesn't work. And let me tell you one thing, I can give you proof to say that the GEM portal is gamed by people. The same price for tablets has existed for 5 years. Because it's gamed. So, this is something very serious because it just doesn't allow domestic companies to enter into it at all. Even among the, if you look at UP for example, is the largest buyer of tablets in the country. Same two suppliers for 5 years, same price for 5 years. How is that possible? So I think that needs to be looked at. One other area which is very, very critical is that we should also look at manufacturing equipment strategy. Okay, we can't just remain dependent globally. So somewhere we need to start to look at creating joint ventures and capability within the country to bring the ASMLs type of people into the country. Between Japan and Netherlands, that's where all of this exists. So we can get some of our large corporates who are good in engineering, let's say Mahindras, let's say Kalyani, all these people are very good at engineering. So we can sort of try and see whether we can marry and get this started in India, because China has already started it and they already have this equipment ready. So we will have a serious problem as we go forward, because at any stage, if any country decides to ban export of any equipment, and it's happening all the time, we are going to be in trouble with our whole strategy of in the future. So I think we need to move from Atmanirbhar, to my mind, to Atmiyata, where we should look at sovereignty of the country as a very important issue. Lastly, I want to talk about another area which I feel we should look at. See, METI has some fantastic schemes, but do the rest of the world know these schemes? So I think an outreach program, solid outreach program should be created to go and do roadshows in at least 4 or 5 countries all over the world, where the electronics manufacturing and semiconductor manufacturing is happening. And we should invite people from India, industry from India, government from India, and people in those countries to attend and understand what we are offering. A lot of times, I went to Taiwan once and I found that they're scared to come to India. We now need to create a red carpet for them in terms of all the things that we can do to make them successful in India. And for that, everybody wants a Taiwan city, everybody wants a Japan city, all those things are, so that I don't need to talk about it. And lastly, I have another maybe a crazy idea. Can we create an Asian alliance? Like, again, looking at Atmiyata. Can we create an Asian alliance between India, Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, Korea? If we create that alliance, we could meet 90% of the semiconductor and electronic requirement. And that kind of an alliance, I talked to Singapore government, they visited me as part of my work that I do with the Quantum Mission. They visited me and I suggested this idea to them. They're very keen to take it up. So Singapore is damn strong in manufacturing and R&D. R&D, they're very, very strong. Malaysia is very strong in manufacturing and R&D. So we look at all these countries, each of them has certain strengths. Our strength is design. So if we combine with these countries, we could have a very interesting Asian alliance for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ajay ji, Sanjeev ji. That's very, very helpful. And I'll just add to the point on the red carpet, because typically what I've heard is the red carpet has been rolled out for investors to come in, and the moment they come in, the carpet is gone, and then they're left on their own. So this is an experience that I think many of you would have faced, and I would like to underline that. But very, very good points. And with that, I'll move towards my right and then move down this table and then the other way around, right? So Rishi, over to you, please.
Thank you. So I think very interesting points you mentioned, Amdeji, in terms of the upstream activities. And I think the magnet example is a good one, because as we move upstream into critical components, it's not the value of the component, it's the criticality of the component. So I represent a chemicals company, and for us it's high purity chemicals is an interesting piece because technology doesn't reside in India today. The idea is, and the fact that there is only one foundry which is on the ground right now, it's a bit more like becoming a cricket player in India today, right? I mean, only one such incident would be there, everybody else would fail. So there's a huge risk to be taken right now to go and build out a very high purity chemical business. This is not a small investment, this is a significant period it takes to actually put that thing on the ground. So if Tata comes in tomorrow, for the first 2 years they'll have to figure out their import on critical elements, which is actually quite challenging because we are talking part per trillion, we're not talking part per billion purity here, right? So that's not something you can manage with imports for a long time because contamination will happen. So the whole idea is how do we get to capturing and ensuring, even in R&D and manufacturing, all the critical components are in-house. To Ajay's point of Atmanirbhar, we can't have commodities, bulk is where we are very, very strong as a country. And I think that's where we are probably closer to China in competition. Lack of natural resources is a key concern where we do not end up being competitive on pricing, but we can be competitive on specialty. We can be competitive on high purity. And that's where I think government can play a great role in being the matchmaker rather than actually providing more stuff in terms of technology, but also in terms of extending the PRIs to these components, looking at hubs, because again, high purity means you have to be near a facility. You can't have a semiconductor plant in Korea being supplied from Chicago or even Taloja is a bit of a challenge. Right? So you are looking at co-location, you are looking at bringing those elements together. Technology, lead times for these capexes are large. So making sure there is some surety for the risk takers, that there will be an ecosystem built out rather than being left with a facility which manufactures part per trillion, which is only supplying electronic grade display fab, which is parts per billion, which is honestly easier to do relatively. So I think that's one piece which would be interesting to look at from an overall construct. The other thing is also these things are going to be long term, right? I mean, if you look at China's silicon journey, it is a 40-year journey. Starting from looking at products, to chemicals, to ingots, to fabs, to foundries, everything. So we'll need consistency over the period of time. So I think there is a lot of consistency coming through in terms of urban schemes, which is great to see. But how do we ensure that this is not an administration dependent, but a country dependent, bureaucracy dependent? I always see bureaucracy as a great carrier of Indian policies. And so can it become a bureaucracy dependent rather than administration dependent policy, which allows it for a 20-year runway for us to build that kind of play in the market? I'll stop it.
Thank you, Rishi. Over to you. So Swati is representing Aditya from CP Plus.
Thank you. Thank you, Amitesh ji. Some of the points which are very, very encouraging for us is, which you just said, is that do your groundwork, don't be bothered about the tariffs till PDA or any other trade agreements come in place. Another thing which really help us is that schemes are there, deep in the value chain, and it has helped us personally. I represent Altech Limited. Our brand is called CP Plus, which is we are one of those unique companies in India, which, as an Indian manufacturer, we are a market leader. So we command around almost 30% of the Indian surveillance market, and this is all thanks to the proactive policies like electronics manufacturing, etc., and the Make in India policy. In the next 1 year, we are going to deepen up the value chain, whether it's to develop critical components in India, co-designed, or other components which are can be both in the active as well as the passive side. Now, my questions to you is, I'm not going to just spell out the goods and bads and the pros and the cons. My question to you is, what are your thoughts on having a second round of compound semiconductors? I think somebody, Sanjeev mentioned, and sensors fabs. Why I'm saying that is, now there will be a renewed interest for these IC-based components because the manufacturing ecosystem from last time to this time has evolved. They have come from SKD to CKD. Some are almost on the verge of moving towards CKD. Mobile has led the charge and they've been CKD for the last 1.5 years, if I'm not wrong. So I think this is the need of the hour for extremely sensitive industry like CCTV, drones, automotive, and medical. These are the 4 areas where we need to relook and into these IC-based components. Another thing which indigenous does, especially for products like ours, is that it not only just supports the value chain for Indian manufacturers, but it actually secures our products. because this is a very different kind of product. So it secures our borders both physically and virtually for sensitive products. What I propose is, can we have a consortium of these kind of product companies which are extremely sensitive, which necessitates, it is urgent that we have indigenous critical components. It's not just wishing, but urgency. And the fourth point I want to focus on is the model RFQ. Everything requires a revisit in light of what I just said. Because for these critical products, which at this point is highly fixated on lowest price, the model RFQ method. Now, if I also refer to the most recent procurement guidelines 2024, even that, the first, when you read out the points, what hits you is lowest price as long as you're maintaining quality. So the price statement comes first. That's not how you buy critical products which secure the country. And I'm sure there'll be other people in this room, will be happy to participate in a quick and dirty work group which makes these necessary changes. I will pause here and thank you.
Thank you, Swati. Just a quick question. When you said components, if we ask CP Plus about a list of components, you will have that?
Yes. We have a readily available bill of material which has been shared with MeitY at least a couple of months back, 2 or 3 months back. Secondly, now that you raised it, MeitY is organizing a quick discussion on Monday on indigenization of SOCs for CCTV.
That's in line with what you were also mentioning.
We should not just do SOC for CCTV, we should do for every product.
Sir, हम तो CCTV
नहीं, आप लोग वहाँ मत छोड़ दो. We need to go. I think you will talk about it.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, because I think.
Let's move to Satya.
So good afternoon, everybody. Satya Gupta from basically ISA, PIC and VLSI Society. So I think lot of suggestions so far have been captured in a MeitY instituted report called Product Nation Report. I think whenever it is available, we can circulate among the people, right? So I will not go and repeat them, right? I just want to raise few points, right? One is that basically when we talk about the products and products which are important for the country, typically they are inter-ministerial products, right? Suppose basically we want to do something for MOD, something for DOT, but it's an electronics product. So now the responsibility is not very clear. Every ministry starts their own program. So one of my suggestions is that we should take requirement from other ministry, but execute those programs under MeitY, under ISM or basically other things. Otherwise we are just duplicating the efforts and not reaching anywhere, right? So I think all the electronics product requirements should come from all the departments and finally basically merge into this thing. Like for example, when we were having a discussion about Indian passport chip, there is no convergence between MeitY and MEA that when it should be done, how it should be done. They want to do it global chip, MeitY wants to do with the Indian chip. So that kind of convergence, otherwise we'll miss these important products like surveillance camera, she said. Passport chip is a ready-made opportunity basically for India, but for that we need an interministerial cooperation. I think that's the one point I just wanted to make. Second thing, we talked a lot about basically
Medical devices also.
yeah, all of those.
Very large, 80% of medical devices are imported.
But electronics should come to a central place, right? Whichever basically, whether it's agri, whether it's defense, whether it's it should come to one place where we aggregate everything, right? Second thing, I think somebody said about procurement, right? So when an Indian company makes an electronics product and the government being basically one of the largest buyers, right? Typically the conditions with the state government put basically, and I tried to sell IP tablet for 2 years, right? I could not find a single state where our price was lower, quality was better, but because they will say you need to have basically 2,000 crore revenue to supply to the state, right? This is ridiculous and basically it hurts basically everybody. Otherwise we cannot sell our products anywhere, right? Third point I wanted to make about the education, right? If you look at the overall semiconductor requirement of the professionals, right, is 90% design, 10% manufacturing. Okay? If I basically, I'm doing an exercise to map our basically academic professors, right? It's other way around. Okay? The 10% professors working in design, 90% working in basically manufacturing. And same is the ratio for the PhDs. See, professors we can't do anything, but if our 90% PhDs happen in the device and manufacturing, we will never be able to develop the right talent because these PhDs will become faculty tomorrow. And if I look at the curriculum of any basically premier institutes, it's very device centric, it's very little design centric, and that's why we are not producing the right design engineers. This is 90% of our requirement. The whole thing, you took the example of lab research. Lab research is basically teaching TCAD through that tool. We need 500 people in TCAD totally in India basically for that tool. We don't need 60,000 people. We need to focus on tape out and designs basically to provide the right this thing. Last point I wanted to make, we have been basically doing a lot of things about PCBs, right? PCB is a basic material, right? So one is basically PCB manufacturing and one is PCB raw material, right? So CCL is basically copper thread laminate which goes into every PCB. It comes from Mother, Roger or F14. We have a lot of copper reserves in India, okay? If we start making CCL, then basically it will not just benefit one company but every, because until unless we contain the cost of basically materials like CCL from FR4 and Roger, our PCB manufacturing will never be competitive, right? But we have all the wherewithal basically to make the CCLs in the country, right? So when we are looking at the PCB, at least in whatever shape and form, if we can start making the laminates ourselves, right, which goes as an input, it I think about 40% of the raw material cost in the PCB, right? And that's a common for everybody. So even if you have one plant of the CCL can supply all the PCB manufacturing, and that's our PCB manufacturing, which is 10 to 15%. Even after this duty, they say they are still 10 to 15% at disadvantage. So that can basically take care. I think about the product nation, I think we need SOCs for these things. We yesterday had a meeting of the CIA committee on this thing, right? So out of the 30 products which we have listed in the product nation, right? Leaving the SOC as well. I think what we discussed is that was a strategy report, right? But for execution point of view, let's select 5 products out of it. Things like CCTV and maybe few others, and just basically come up with a strategy for each product, because each product strategy is going to be different. The smartphone is not going to apply the same strategy as the CCTV, right? Or a smart TV or something. So based on the basically whatever the national demand is, if we select 5 products out of the product nation report, right? And then first pick the products, and then once we have a local demand, then we basically start working on the SOC. In the CCTV, it is already happened, right? For other areas, we have to make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Satya. As usual, a lot of important points. Thank you, Satya. Moving to Sanjeev sir.
I'm Sanjeev Sehgal. I'm the founder and managing director of CCTV. First of all, I'm really thankful. Most of the people are talking about CCTV. I have been into this domain for 23 years. I started with CCTV 23 years back. So we did first CCTV camera which was designed in India in 2008, analog camera. I have seen the complete journey around these 23 years, how the industry has evolved, and it's really a commendable job which was done by MIT last year when a public procurement order under PPIT, PPP, MMI policy for CCTV came up. And it is an excellent document, as sir was saying that the design, IPR, everything has been taken into account for in that. So which is making a very big inroads for domestic manufacturers. Definitely there is a huge opportunity coming in. And we are seeing that the efforts which industry was doing for so many years. And I would like to tell the forum, CCTV has come up a very big journey. 90% of CCTVs I believe currently in India, at least STD is being done. And almost more than 75% is being done at CKD level. So that's one of the major successes we can talk about, but it was due to policy interventions. Till date, we have 20% custom duty on the complete products. So these certain barriers are definitely required for growing up the domestic industry. So, but in domestic industry has to also come up. So we had, as sir was saying, that in CIA also we have a champions of Make in India committees there. So we are discussing, I'm the convener for that committee, and we have been discussing for almost 1.5 years what products can be taken up so that some champions can be created out of. We need to create certain success stories. Those success stories have to be made as a base, because unless and until we have success, we can talk about multiple products. But we have to make some certain success stories. Those success stories will become a base for others to get motivated and to create more success stories. So definitely the policy intervention, the way that it has been growing up, skilling, cyber security is another thing which has been taken care in CRO. For CCTV in CRO now we have not only BIS certification, we have BIS ER certification. That essential requirement is now covering up cyber security and trusted supply chain. So those are the few efforts, and definitely we believe that these efforts will continue even on the SOC level and others. We are working very closely with APIC and other departments, other associations, all this further going behind on the SOC, image sensors and other things can be developed locally, and this can grow up. Very frankly, CCTV was one product where we had only one competition, that was China. In last, maybe in 1.5 decades, the total CCTV industry went to China. Almost top 5 out of in the world, top 4 from China. These top 5 turnover could be equivalent to rest 95 top 100. So that's where so we can identify these kind of products, and those products can be taken as for product nation also. We have an internal requirement also, as Swati was just talking about. So we need to put up these products for security and safety. So the data is very critical. Data from other equipment is also critical. So those kind of products can be definitely looked into product nation when we are looking at product nation. So maybe that could be the starting point, and we can take it ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See, sir, sometimes we ban some of these basically Chinese companies from the security, like Huawei or Hikvision. But they keep coming in a different avatar, and basically they found some Indian company basically which is a fake basically company. We have to find a way to basically stop this. There is some company with a P, right? I don't remember. I am not familiar, right?
Hikvision has operated another company by the name of Brahma.
What is this? Basically, there is no point in basically Hikvision will come as a Brahma will create another company here, and then basically our whole effort of basically not allowing Hikvision for the security goes away. I think basically I just learned when I'm working with CCTV guys that this is what is happening, right? So we need an effective way to, if we really want to ban something, then it has to be effectively banned. If you don't want to ban, that's fine. But if you want to ban, then effectively ban it.
Yeah, no, that's happening in many sectors.
Oh, it's happening in medtech also.
Everywhere it's happening.
Automobiles.
And the operating system is Chinese. The chip is Chinese, but the product is Indian.
We have FTA
with Vietnam, and we have FTA with Vietnam, Thailand, and they found that route.
Sir, logically, there could be seen as a logical thing. Hikvision, whatever Hikvision did in 35 years, some company is saying that they have done in 1.5 years. All the products developed in India in 1.5 years, what Hikvision did in 35 years in China. So somewhere we need to...
Something very similar to what we have battery management system.
So we need to record what you're saying, and we need a microphone, but shall we wait till your turn comes? Otherwise it'll be a little messy. So Pradeep Gupta, to you, over to you.
Yeah, so thank you, Jayji. So Pradeep Gupta from DataQuest Cyber Media. But right now I'm not wearing my media hat. Okay, so I'm talking more from the perspective of startups. And that comes from the fact that I've been a big mentor to various kind of startups, part of the Indian Angel Network. Both Ajay and I are on the board of and co-founders of Indian Angel Network, IVCAP and various other funds, as well as on the 10,000 crore fund of funds that the government of India has created. I'm on that IC as well. Now, some of the points that I'm mentioning are common to what I had said in the morning also, which was a different session on telecom. So some people who were there in the morning may find it repetitive. Basically, MeitY has done a lot in terms of promoting the startup ecosystem. You have the TIDE scheme, you have STPI doing different kind of things, we have the Electropreneur Park which is there for electronics and ESDM product innovation and so on. I think what really lacks is that all of this is not woven into a tapestry. These are individual sort of pieces which are there, but there is nothing which sort of says that what do I do in terms of taking an idea from a theory to an idea, from an idea to a POC, from a POC to prototype, prototype to manufacturing to the market, market to scaling up to going global. Yes, in terms of semiconductor, a lot of investment will come into, will be large projects, but the real growth cannot happen until and unless, as Sanjeev had mentioned, that if we have product innovation, until and unless that happens, we will not have this growth, and that will come on the shoulders of startups. And so therefore there is a need for weaving this entire thing into, as I said, tapestry, so that the complete kind of a chain is available, a cycle is visible to a startup when they come. And there are some good examples of that. BIRAC is a very good example where you can take it into different stages, and right from whether it is grants to internships to equity participation, all of that chain is available. And then finally culminating into a fund of funds, and perhaps for semiconductors, there needs to be a separate fund of funds that needs to be created, and that can again be and has to be administered professionally through various VCs and so on. So I think that kind of an ecosystem is very much required, and it should have conditions which are practical also. For instance, in one of the schemes, which is not of course a MeitY scheme, but in an IDEX scheme I've come across, where they give that money, but then after that the startup is supposed to give a bank guarantee of that much amount. Now that defeats the purpose, because the startup can only get that bank guarantee by taking that money and putting it in FD, right? So that sort of doesn't work. So it has to be a very, very practical approach that needs to be taken into this entire thing. And I think that if these fundamental changes are brought about in the entire startup ecosystems, then we can see a flourishing of startups which come in this area. The problem with the traditional funding route here is that electronic products very often will take much longer, and in semiconductor, the capital has to be much more patient. So unlike, let's say, a software product where you can start seeing something coming up in 6 months and 1 year and 1.5 years, and both Sanjeev and Satya have been part of the various startups that we see at the Electropreneur Park. They require much longer time period before an angel investor can look at them. Okay, and therefore perhaps schemes where there can also be co-investments taking place. That the government says, okay, fine. You find an investor, I am willing to put half the money, let the investor put half the money, and obviously that de-risks for a VC. So there can be lots of innovations that can be brought in, but I think we need to have a very, very robust ecosystem to support innovation in product innovation, so that we can be a product nation, as well as in semiconductors, where there will be various sort of startups that will be required. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pradeep. Moving to you, Abhishek.
Yeah. My name is Abhishek Agrawal. I'm a country manager for Bharat Electronics. I want to echo and first of all thank ISM and MITI for taking a lead. Our company has been working with you for past many years and observing it. And to be very honest, I think initially there was a lot of caution and skepticism. Will this happen? Won't this happen? And because of the history, India has tried in the past and it didn't work. And now there is a lot of excitement and confidence. There has been a lot of engagement from your side, from our CEO. They have met Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw in the Davos forum both years, and last year's Prime Minister Modi panel. So I think we also have to acknowledge what all has worked. There's quite a bit that has worked. The understanding of the ecosystem, if you see many other schemes, it has been quite narrow-minded. So the way you have reached out to different companies, and there are hundreds of them, and make them understand the country and help understand their role, I think those are really worth appreciating. And I think we need to continue to do that. Little bit about our company. Our company is 360 years old. It started around when Taj Mahal was built. We started with a pharmacy in Germany, and today, besides many other businesses, we are one of the largest chemical and material suppliers in the semiconductor industry. We work with every single chip manufacturer in the world, and we are committed to serve Tata Electronics in India. We are setting up the local team, and I am the you can say first employee of Merck Electronics India. And we are fully committed to make sure Tata is successful. We are also into construction business because the gases and the chemicals that we handle, they need specialized construction equipment. You cannot just take anything that's available. So we are also bringing that expertise to India. So I think when we look at Atmanirbhar, we have to look at running the fab, but also construction. The construction technology is so difficult, and I'm not a technical expert, but what I'm learning is that we all know about the lead times in equipment, and I think Sir talked about the equipment challenges. Equipment is definitely one piece of it, but there are many, many other elements of how do you make the building, how do you make the clean room, how do you make the pipes. You can manufacture the high purity gas in your factory, but then how do you make sure that it goes unhindered or without getting adulterated from the tank to the clean room, which goes to kilometers of pipes. So the way it impacts construction is that the way you weld your pipes, the way you select your pipes, that technology doesn't exist in India. It doesn't exist, period. So we have to appreciate these things, and yes, running the fab is of course very important, but we don't want Tata to be the only fab. We want many, many more such fabs. So we also have to look at construction. And there are many unique aspects around that. Now coming to the specific recommendation, I think the first, many people talked about it, removing the supply chain barriers. The chemicals, so since we are a chemical and gas and construction company, our focus will be more on that. There are many supply chain barriers because the materials we are talking about are highly, highly hazardous. We are talking about arsine, phosphine, silane, nitrous oxide, and these are names to you. You do Google search and you will realize the kind of damage these things can cause if not handled properly. And they are not just one or two of them. Fabs need more than 50 such gases, hundreds of chemicals. There are chemicals if it's just exposed to air, it will catch fire. Trimethyl oxide, trimethyl aluminum. So there are many, many such things. We have to make sure that the supply chain is not in the fab. It's coming to the port, handled by the port, handled by the truck drivers, going on the road. We have to look at all of that. That's the first point. The second point is, in order to really have companies develop this in India, I think the first, Mr. Rishi talked about high purity chemicals. The technology doesn't exist in India. And when we say technology for high purity chemical, manufacturing is one piece. How do you analyze them? Small things like sampling port, the analytical machines, you can bring the machines, but the process, of how the sample bottle that you use for these chemicals is different, because the sample bottle will contaminate the sample because of the purity requirement. So I think we have to really understand the space, get into the details, and then bring some technical partnership. We are very open. We are already working with few companies, and without hardening our business, we are trying to share technology as much as we can. And the third point is fostering a local ecosystem, and I think there all of you talked about many aspects. The one aspect that I would mention, which we discussed a little bit, is when you look at the construction, we are focusing on running the fab. In construction, there are many trade jobs, welding. We don't have welders who know this in India. And I can bring few Korean and Taiwanese welders, but I need 200 of them. And if they work here for a year, they have to pay taxes to Indian government for their global income, which discourages them, quite frankly. So it's not, not all of them will be interested in coming. So I think that if you want to develop it, we have to look at trade also, and all the things which are needed in construction. Yeah. With that, I'll end and pass on. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ajit. My name is Amit Shah. I represent Calling Technology. So Amitesh, you alluded to 6 proposals which got cleared under the ISM 1.2, and hopefully I see more proposals getting cleared under the ISM 2.0. But the missing link, as you already mentioned, is a display fab. So again, in India, we're not very novice on that display. A lot of display assembly is already happening. Few of the applicants got the benefit of specs. And hopefully under this ECMS, which is very thoughtful scheme, we'll see more such display assembly happening. Now the display fab is something which I think should be a focus for ISM 2.0. We need few of the display fab to be in the country. As far as my company is concerned, most of the places where the display fab is there, calling plant is co-located. But same as with the specialty chemical, we also need some sort of a substantial volume to set up our glass plant. So we're ready to work with the government in terms of making those display guys come to India. I know a lot of effort has been put by MIT earlier also, but unfortunately there are not much good technical partners for the applicants who applied for this scheme on board. So we're really looking forward the government to have another that will be another jewel in the MIT's crown if we have few more display fab also apart from the silicon fab. Thank you.
Thank you. Swapna.
Hi everyone, this is Swapna from Manaro Tech Private Limited. So we are in Coimbatore. So we manufacture data storages and servers, and it has been 10 years. Just we have completed a decade in the industry. So we are basically supplied to R&D institutions and manufacturing industries, and mostly post-production and broadcast. So till 2024, the opportunities that we got is everything around private. So as a startup, when we have started, so it is like we had to expand or put the brand inside the market, and we had to establish the trustmanship in the market. So and now we have crossed all those hurdles. So now with the government projects coming with DOT, we have supplied some servers, and currently we are doing with Airport Authority of India. So these are the opportunities that we got almost 9 years of identification. So after 9 years, so now only we are able to show up that in government sector also we could work. So this is what I wanted to highlight. The process, as Sanjay sir has mentioned, the GEM and the rights. So these are not that user friendly for us to penetrate into the market. So in spite of showcasing our products in private sector, so it took a very long time to get into or prove the worth of Indian products. So this is like the entire R&D team, support team, everything is in India. So this is where we are looking for the government to give us the opportunities. So where so we basically work in Coimbatore, so which is very prominent leader in sheet metal, and we have already started manufacturing chassis, and this is already been the first the prototype is ready, and we are supplying it with the known contacts to us. So we have also partnered with Keynes India for the supplying huge orders for Airport Authority of India, and we are looking for more opportunity and support from the government. So to do more the exposure that we get, right? So when it comes to the complete Indian company where we are doing everything here, the R&D and the development and the manufacturing to an extent, and although we import many of the components, as everybody was saying, 60%, and we do have our own software where the data storages are running on our proprietary software, which is completely Indian. So there is always a competition, as we said, in the tenders that we have applied, CMRL or MMBD, we are just waiting it. So in spite of winning those tenders, so what happens is like many, it's very unfortunate that I have to mention this, that many of the projects that are already won, but at the final moment, the Indian companies are just put back, right? Saying those don't qualify the requirements, but in spite of giving, putting a lot of efforts, we are lacking that opportunities. So we seek the government support, so to trust us, and we have already the proven deployments across India. So in 7 airports, we have already supplied the servers and storages, and are running with the 10 years of experience. So we look forward, and for the PLI schemes and all, we are very open, and we look forward for the support from the government for the more R&D to happen in India. Thank you.
Thank you, Swapna. I think my little small observation is that we seem to have less visibility to the firms based in South. I don't know if that's only my observation. Isn't it so? Yeah. But there is a lot of, I think gems out there. So perhaps there should be some way to have better visibility to what's happening.
About Singapore, Malaysia, and those things, but we are in-house. We are equipped with many things, right? So that we have to explore on that. Maybe the exposure should be more.
South is
so
another
we have to get connected with as a team and have a shared lab, and those facilities are yet to be explored.
Thank you. I'll pass it to the gentleman.
Yeah, my name is Varun Manwani. I'm representing Sehasra. Sir, there are 3 points which I would like to make. The very first point is we all talk about the ecosystem. Sir, I think it is a must that somehow the government can build a framework for the design ecosystem to work with the hardware ecosystem, and the hardware ecosystem to work with the product ecosystem. Only then we can have a product nation. And what I'm trying to say by that is that, let's say we take the case of a couple of successful product categories like the mobile phones and the CCTV camera. So yes, from just trading in those products, we've come to SKD, from SKD we've come to CKD. The next jump is going to be the trickiest part, because so far it was not simple, but it was doable. And the next jump is going to be the trickiest because it involves now everybody to work together. So just as an example, let's say a few years back when, and I'm not trying to say one nation is better than the other, but when Huawei was kind of backed into the corner and they were deprived of technology, etc., they bounced back and they were able to bring in new technology, working with everybody within China. I think what happens in India is at the drop of a hat, we want to work with China or with somebody else first and not work within our community. And somehow we need to build that sense of pride, that we need to work with each other, trust each other, and help each other to develop. If that does not happen, we are not going to be able to use Indian chips, Indian designs, etc. And that's the answer. That's why, you know, all the back offices of the world, all the back R&Ds of the world are here, but we don't have an Indian product company. To that matter, probably we don't even have an Indian software company with a software product. It's a lot of back office work, it's R&D work, but we're not able to work together. So that's something which the government needs to also somehow push it. I know there are some instances where it's happening through PLIs, especially PLI 2.0 IT hardware, where it is being pushed on the product companies that you localize the supply chains and you go further and further. But this has to happen across all product categories for all of them to succeed. The second point is that we are all talking about champions to be built. And yes, global companies are global because they are champions. But for a lot of Indian companies and a lot of these, not only sunrise sectors, but even in existing sectors where Indian companies were not really champions. Mostly across the globe, it is SMEs who are running the business, and some of them convert into champions. So we really feel that in all the discussions, we might mention it, but in principle or in practicality, SMEs are being left out. SMEs need to be really encouraged because they are the backbone. I'll just talk about ourselves, for example, in the semiconductor policy. And terrific policy, there's no doubt about that. But ISM is really supporting, financially, which is really the need of the hour in semiconductor manufacturing, and we have a packaging facility. But a lot of those are supporting just the big players. It has to support the SMEs as well, because in any value chain, you will have the smaller guys, the mid-sized guys, and the big guys. And as Sanjeev ji said, that although 6 plants have been granted the benefit, but those 6 will be able to support only, I doubt even 10-15%, but let's say certain percentage. Everybody will be needed to support all the other percentages, because not one company will be able to specialize in everything. Today, if you look at all the global semiconductor players, they do compete, but they have specializations in areas, and everybody is not doing everything. Somebody is in power, somebody is in auto, somebody is in sensors, etc. So SMEs really need support at the semiconductor level, and the challenges that are faced by the big guys is being faced by us. So let's say we being one of the very first companies, today I have to forcefully buy 1,000 kgs of molding compound, although my need over the last 2 years has just about grown to 250-300 kgs. I have no choice, and majority of it just goes waste because the expiry happens, shelf life goes away, all of that. So SMEs really need a lot of support. Another point on the SME side is, I think Ajay Chaudhary mentioned about the global outreach program by the government. I think there needs to be an outreach program by the government even for SMEs. Because worldwide, big companies can talk to each other via a lot of consulting companies, via governments, and themselves through their local offices. But SMEs do not have that outreach. And whether it is Taiwan, Malaysia, Thailand, Singapore, and definitely India, it's all the SMEs who are driving most of this activity. So there need to be outreach programs via the government for the SMEs as well. For certain areas. I mean, obviously it may not be a glass fab or things like that, display fab, but it could be various other areas which are sensitive. And the last point which I wanted to make is that we spoke about certain raw materials being hoarded or being blackmailed. But on the other hand, it's not only the raw materials and the gases and all of that, it's even the final product. So as soon as we start to get into, like we are doing certain chips already, and we see, anyways everything was coming from China. Now that we started, we see it takes hardly a split second for them to drop the price. And yet the wafer price does not drop. So we're getting beaten by on both sides that we have to pay the wafer at a higher price, yet our competition is able to bring the chip at a lower price. How does that deficit get managed? There is a viability gap funding or there is something of that nature. Only then can we come in and support the Indian ecosystem, the product ecosystem to give them chips at an affordable price. We have to look at something seriously. Now, this may not be the CCTV product category where a 20% has been put, or this may not be certain PCBAs categories where 15% has been put. I don't think it can be done on semiconductor chips because of us being signatories, but sir, we have to find some solution. Otherwise, to your point, it might be us or Tata's, everybody may not succeed eventually if we don't somehow find a way to protect ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, in the previous session, somebody was mentioning that that mostly you compete with companies, but with China, you're competing with the government of China. And it's across product lines. It's not just your section. Over to you, Neva.
Namaskar, I'm Neha. I represent HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprises, and head strategy for the company in India. We are committed to the Make in India mission. We started server manufacturing thanks to the PLI 2.0, which was instrumental. And to your point, when you were saying the government is not, the outreach program, I think the partnership with DVD Technologies happened because of the outreach from the government. The minister met our CEO, suggested some names, and that worked really well in our favor. I have 3 points. I think most of them have been discussed. But first, on the deepening of the value chain, I think we are trying to do everything for everybody. It could be an opportunity to selectively calibrate a strategic choice of products and components that we want to localize, rather than looking at an end-to-end kind of value chain, which distributes the funding, which distributes resources, which kind of spreads everything too thin. So can we do that strategic approach where we have an advantage? It could be China plus one strategy, it could be something which encourages more employment, it could be something which is high value, but can we pick up components within a product which give us more benefit of localization rather than a checkbox exercise of everything has been localized, which kind of distributes the supply chain. The second, on the incentives piece, I think PLI was a great starting point, accelerated investments from domestic and global companies, but the thresholds were too high. Many of the people here also mentioned that. Can we look at innovative incentive models? The MC clusters was one example. Can it be de-linked from just the revenue? Because there's a long gestation period. You put capex today, in 2 years you will start manufacturing, only then you get the incentive. What SMEs or even global companies will need is some ROI initially in the first 2 years, because it's too long a gestation period. I think the India AI mission has done this very well, which is giving access to compute, which is the most intensive, most expensive, and most scarce resource. Sarvam, as a model builder, will get access for 6 months to compute, which if they didn't have, they wouldn't have done it. So those are new model ways of incentivization rather than just revenue-linked incentives. And third, the talent point, you saw listed a lot of skilling programs. Those are still at the entry level, right? We do need expertise for precision engineering, for high-tech manufacturing. How do we encourage the PhDs who have gone international from India to get the reverse brain drain done right? Returnship programs. China had something called 1,000 talent program. They had to cancel it eventually because of some IP risk issues. 80% of the PhD candidates from China across the world returned to China to work. We have lost 2 to 3 decades of talent from engineering, either to IT, today data scientists, or to other locations. How do we bring that talent back in academia and industry? And we need partnership from the government to get that high quality expert professional talent to build scale, welders, for example. How do we get people not from Taiwan and Korea, but people who are from India but studying abroad, working abroad, and get them back? There is the right time currently with the protectionism and everything going around the world. It is time to bring back our talent with some specific schemes and programs. Those would be my 3 points.
Thank you, Neha. Very, very helpful. And I think we need to pause and think about the first point you mentioned, that should we focus on a few national focus areas. rather than spread around multiple components and multiple products. Could be food for thought. Could we start from the end of the table, because normally we miss that out. Raj, do you want to go first on this side? Can you hear us?
Hi, so I'm Raj Basu. I founded a company called Power and Urja. We are developing a 300-acre campus in Nagpur. It's an integrated campus for solar and semiconductor. And we are inviting SMEs to come and sort of join hands with us and be part of the ecosystem. We also will be producing photonics and mechatronics there. And the key problems we've been facing there is people, financing, and OEM. None of the OEMs that we want to engage with are in India. They're all in China. So if you come to supply chain risk in financing, what the gentleman was saying over there is, if you can have risk financing, where you have...
Raj, can you bring the microphone closer?
Where you have investors who are willing to partner up with lenders. So we approached TDP, Technology Development Board, for part of the financing, and their issue was, unless you are at PLM 9, they cannot finance it. So which means the equipment that we have developed ourselves, that cannot be financed. So we can only buy from OEMs in China. So we talk about component manufacturing, but there is no one that can integrate the components into a finished product. I think that's something if you can address, that will be very helpful for us.
Thank you.
There are other issues that I know that I'm going to be public that we can discuss face to face. We talk about specialty chemicals and gases. So for our fab, finding qualified suppliers, that's been a critical issue. So even for engineering, all sort of piping, tubes, valves, every material, we have to import from China. So even building the fab, even though we have a great contractor, but all the material and design has to come from abroad. These are all bottlenecks when it comes to mass manufacturing of any product.
Thank you, Raj.
Hi, Vikrant this side from EY. So these will be my personal opinion and comment on the section. So carrying forward the conversation on product nation, I would like to mention this one product which is called photoresist, which is used in lithography process here in making of semiconductor. So Japan has a clear monopoly, almost 100% monopoly for this particular compound, and they export to each and every country wherever they are making the semiconductor. Few years ago, China also was dependent on this Japan. There are three companies called JSR, Tokyo, and Shimizu. They have 100% monopoly on that. So it would be great for becoming a kind of a part of a product nation. Is Semicon has some kind of an policy on this particular product? Because just want to give one example, two examples actually. So in near future, we are making some kind of 3 nanometer, 5 nanometer of nodes. This particular compound, it gets sold at between $10,000 to $15,000 per liter. So there's a huge market for that. And second thing, why I'm giving this example, so there was this one instance where TSMC lost almost 10,000 to 30,000 wafer because this particular compound was, adulterated. So there's a huge possibility for India to becoming a product nation because this is a very niche product. Yeah, I know it's a very complex one, and based on the projects and research which we did with various companies, so it's cost around close to $1 billion to build this particular plant and start manufacturing this particular product. That's it.
Thank you so much. The next gentleman, please.
Some of the points which have been already covered, right? Some of the products like BMS, battery management system. You have telecom ministry and you have EVs. Telecom ministry does not allow Chinese BMS to be used here. right? Whereas EV is alloying. Right? Now startup who has a capability to offer sell the BMS in both the segments, can't sell it. Right? And because of volume and the pricing the Chinese enjoy, land up selling to other segments also. Like you're getting into market, you're restricting one, not restricting another. And this is a simpler product where our startups have done a fantastic job, but somehow they have not been able to compete. Now, coming to the larger issue, right? When we are talking about productization, there is a need for starting a debate first before we incentivize or do larger things. What exactly we want to do? So, first of all, maybe I am not aware, but what is OEM, what is contract manufacturing, what is EMS, what is ODM, right? We borrow definitions from Taiwan or US. We don't have our own supply chain defined for the entire contract manufacturing EMS. We use terminology of other countries in interchange. Now, so there is a need to get basic framework in place before we talk about getting into design policy or incentives and all. Now, someone Sanjeev pointed out that the products are different. Each and every product is different. What boat or variables are doing, they are manufacturing everything, but still the market is different. Versus laptop, where most of the brands are outside brand and we are getting from outside. Each product dynamics is different. Right? So, one of the larger classification which we have talked about in the production report is disruptive products and your regular products. Right? The challenges for both the products are different. Right? You can't have one policy for laptop and similar policy for variables. There will be common threads will emerge, but we need to look at individually then come to a common point. Right? So ODM policy is something which we should roll out thought processes or discussions around it so that as and when things come up. Right? And one of the challenges which startup ecosystem talks about, very few of them, like a company called Coimbatore is working on server. Most of them are coming out with the disruptive model. I have come across one of the startup companies which works with us. They have developed diagnostic equipment which can do culture test within 90 minutes versus 3 days, which is taking the hospital down. Right? Now, the state is dominated by Japanese company not to blame Chinese only. Right? Now, changing the specification in other places, it's a Herculean task. I'm not saying this is challenge for Belty or electronics. Nobody lost job buying IBM. Is always true for health ministry, hospital, and everything. Right? So government need to allow somewhere off the top need to happen. Right? Make in India is happening, and this is not government's problem. It's my problem also because I also want to buy branded stuff. Right? I myself will not compromise anything to the local product. We still call Indian products a local product. So these are the issues where Indian products quality is given. You need to be priced up. You need to be quality. Right? But we talk about Make in India, and particularly we have been most successful in the electronics sector. But we don't measure it. Make in India, how are we progressing? What is revenue is growing, but have we grown as a value addition or Make in India how is progressing? Electronics is doing better than agriculture in Make in India. So some kind of measurement need to come in. Right? Some kind of debate need to start in terms of how the disruptive products. I work with a lot of startups, right? And I'm sure 90% of them will struggle to sell the government. If you happen to be in health and education sector, right, you can be 90% sure you're going to struggle in commercialization. Right? Wherever the government procurement is state subject and it happens to be education or health where 90% is procured by the government, they are so helpless. So particularly for sectors like education, which is tablet, or for your medical equipment, government need to come out. Otherwise, there is no way we can ever make any progress. So either we should stop funding them, or we should give a protective GTM or market access to state government.
Thank you so much. I think very insightful views. Raja, over to you.
Thanks. Inviting Raja, I partner with Bharat. I think just listening, spent time with consulting, but one of the things that I think Ajay ji talked about is this Asian alliance, and it looks like there's a huge need to really scale up the ecosystem because a lot of fragments players here. And typically what has worked is very thought through, precise joint ventures. Because somebody's strength, it could be used to really scale up our industry. So Taiwan, Japan, Korea, etc. We can really have a precision thought process to engage with those companies and have some players, stronger Indian companies, startups, SMEs, and really engage to form those joint ventures. Because the end of the day, execution is the key here. So perhaps that's one recommendation to think about.
Thank you, Raja. Over to you, Prabhat.
Hi, good evening. This is Prabhat Bhattacharya from Delhi. I lead government affairs and public policy for Delhi, India. So enough has already been covered by placing that line. One of the advantages of coming towards the back end of the discussion. So I'd like to profusely thank everyone. But sir, just to quickly bring back the context. In terms of being Atmanirbhar or self-reliant, I'm sure you are aware that we started with manufacturing in India in 2007. Way back, even before India started realizing the need to become self-reliant. So there is a significant amount of commitment which has gone into making in India way back from 2007. And in fact, we were the early participants in PLI 1. We became the only global IT hardware company to also get incentives. And now we have migrated to PLI 2. So I think in terms of, some of the PLI schemes in terms of the IT hardware and the component scheme, I think these are very welcome moves, and we hope that with these schemes, we will be able to have a more, forward and backward integration as far as the supply chain resiliency is concerned. But coming back to some of the specific issues, and some of the issues have already been discussed. I think one we'd like to definitely talk about is, can there be a mechanism to reduce disruption, and especially disruption in realms like more predictability in regulatory clearances? And classic examples. So for example, what we make in India, I'm happy to state that over 90% of the desktops and all-in-ones which we sell in India are made in India. Over 70% of the servers which we sell in India are made in India. In fact, flagship government digitization projects, whether it's railways or passport seva, there's a list of them. But they're all made in India servers. But there are these specific products which are very hard to make in India, right? They do servers, they do laptops, monitors, etc. And we have seen that it's now almost becoming a pattern that products which are not made in India gets into a regulatory hurdle between BIS and our land ministry, which is mighty. And we have still not been able to at least arrive at an equilibrium wherein there is more predictability and we are able to better cater to market demand. So I think that's one big area which I thought I must call out. The second area, of course, Mr. Chaudhary spoke about public procurement, and with due regard to the domestic companies, we've seen that there's still this sharp divide between how global IT hardware companies vis-a-vis domestic companies are treated, and we feel that public procurement, the whole mechanism needs to be a bit more transparent, predictable, so that it creates a level playing field for global and domestic companies, and it should potentially open up a new market altogether. I'll stop here, sir.
Thank you, Prabhat.
Thank you. I'm Zedi from BEAT. So most of the points have been covered. I'll just talk about very ground level issues too, low-hanging fruits that I would call, which will in a way support the Atmanirbhar towards the ecosystem of electronics. One is about the design. So smaller companies certainly need some kind of a help from government in terms of design centers. We did some work, supported our members, and they took opportunity, and some institutions were used, and one of the members specifically used C-DEP to get the product designed here in India, while the original one was being designed in China. It was a cable TV network system. Now, the design took some time, it happened, but that government attitude didn't change there. Changing of a home page for this system took 40 days plus, and it was not even achieved yet. So now that sends a very wrong message within the SMEs that this is not the right approach, or they would rather prefer outsiders who do it much faster. If we could inculcate this in a way where the designing is done in India easily for SMEs or other micro and small companies who cannot afford their own things, this would certainly help them, and people do want to do that. People do want to use it, but there's some kind of a hesitation now because of these kind of problems which they have faced. Second is the initiative which made took was the ERSO under your tenure only, electronic repair service outsourcing. This is a very good initiative. It will bring in business, it will bring in employment. Things are moving, but again the advantage is being taken by the larger players who have the connects across the world to get the business. There are large number of small players who want to be in this business, who are doing something and they want to get into part of it, but they are not getting business here again from international companies. If government will support in getting that, that will be a big help for the smaller players as well. I will pause.
Thank you, sir.
Myself, Ashok Mehta, Suchi Semicon, Gujarat, Surat. Actually, we are the Gujarat first semiconductor OSAT plant, started this year only. And our journey is since 3 decades from textiles to semiconductor, and our slogan is saris to silicon. We spent almost 30 years in the textile and now diversify in the semiconductor industries. And we started our productions this month, and we shipped our first chips to the US. And hopefully we qualify that our product next week or maybe within 2 weeks. Why we choose this customer in US base? Now you import the chips, the duty is 0. And we use the raw material to produce the chips like epoxy, mold compound, gold or copper wire, the semiconductor grade, and lead frame. That's a duty on that raw material. How can we compete in that domestic market? Once the chip is duty free and government taking initiative, the industry can grow in India, and all the raw materials, they put the duty on the raw materials. So I request Avinash sir to please take this point seriously, because all the big players not started the manufacturing, so that they don't know what is the impact of this duty on the raw material. When they started, they come to you. Please put this matter in that finance ministry or whatever you want to put this matter. This is the biggest challenge for that ecosystem, how we can compete with that players. Actually, our buyer from the US, sometimes everyone telling how you can compete with the China. But sir, all the good customers, they don't want the Chinese raw material, because the value of the chips and the value of the end product, value of the chips is very small part of this product. And if the quality is not as per their requirement, their whole system failed. Once we buy that laptop of Dell or any good company, 1 lakh rupees or Apple, the chip value is hardly from the total PCBs is maximum will be 500 rupees. So no one can compromise in that quality. So we are not worried about that competition with the China. We are working on that TO package also. that is used in that auto industry, and I can tell you, so many Chinese companies, they are importing their chips from the Japan. I have the very good connection with the Japan companies. They are exporting to China, and almost total revenue of his companies 20% from China. So the people in our country is afraid from the China, but I am also working in the textile exporting since 30 years. I don't think so. There is not a problem for that any market. You create your brand, you create your product. There is not a barrier for selling any product in the world. That is my experience of 30 to 40 years. So please sir, you keep it this. And secondly, Mr. Manan also tell that to give the support to the small companies also. You still today you are supporting to the Tata and CG and all big companies. So we are also waiting the small companies. Our proposal is very small, and we come to this level. Why? So many people asking me one question: without supporting from the government, how can you build this factory? When we started this career, all US buyers or the Japanese companies, they told, India, oh, still on the PPTs, you are not on the actual ground. So we have to prove we are on the actual ground, we are the capable, and we hired all the technical people from Malaysia. I put almost 1.5 years back-end office in Malaysia, and I hired all the technical people in the top levels. I hired from the Malaysia, and they have the experience of 30 years, 35 years in Infineon, Motorola, on Semi, and very good companies. So there is not an issue, and they trained the Indian students. We hired about 60 BTech and MTech students from the NITs, IITs, and good college. And till today we are having about MOU with 500 college, and we are hiring regularly, and we train the students. And nowadays, if you can come to my factory, Indian student can run the factory without the top guys from Malaysia. So they give the training six months, and then they train all the staffs here. So there is not an issue about that technical staff also. We can do it comfortably. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Just one,
Sorry, may I just add one point? Both these companies are already doing OSAT. We never talk about it. We say only 6 are allowed by ISM. Kindly include them in ISM. Because I think it's unfair not to be included. They both done it on the earlier schemes. कोई बात नहीं करता इसका. It's very sad because they are already in business. Sorry.
Very good points. Sir, one quick point about the firmware and electronic product innovation. My request is just extend the DLI scheme to embedded electronic startups. If we do that, it will create a lot of product innovation. Because sir, I have seen so many design houses in India who have developed world-class product, but they cannot compete with Chinese. So if we support them with some DLI incentive in design and production link incentive. Sir, all DLI schemes are for the big players like mobile phone and telecom. But there is no scheme for MSME in production link incentive. So if we extend the existing DLI scheme of fabless to embedded electronics, sir, it will create a huge electronic product innovation in India. And also it will make with that PLI of 30 crore, it will make them competitive to take off at the initial stage to address the disadvantage.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add? Right. No, it's great to end on a high note from Sochi Semicon of everything that we're actually doing on the ground, and thanks for the ecosystem being created by the government to enable such initiatives to happen. So with that, we'll hand the stage back to the chair. Amiteshji, over to you.
So thank you. A lot of inputs today, and I will start from some good notes. on the basis of my experience with the approved 6 companies. The companies now report back to us that the cost of manufacturing of chips in India is going to be the cheapest in the world. This is the first reaction coming from their side. And then I ask question whether this is because of incentive of government or other way. Like, no, we are not factoring into incentive from government, because incentive has brought them at par with the other depreciated fabs or packaging facility in the world which are operating at zero depreciated level. So even if after 75% of incentive, suppose 25% depreciated level they are working now. But leaving that, the regular operation, maintenance, material and other cost, the way our Indian engineers have trained and they are working on the packaging facility or other way. So they are saying that they have learned very well what Suchi Semicon today is telling, that without the Malaysian experts they are able to run. This is the message coming from all the side, that our talents they have picked up very well, and the cost of manufacturing is going to be cheapest in the country, entire world. This feedback I got earlier from a very big company which had explored almost 55 locations in the world. And at that time they told me that as per our calculation, Dhorera is the cheapest place to manufacture semiconductor chips in the world. But because of ecosystem, probably will not come right now. And that's why we lost that opportunity. But now the ecosystem is developing. Ecosystem is a journey of many years. But we are trying to catalyze it by giving incentives, by giving approvals. 6 approvals we have given. Probably we will see that 6-7 more approvals will come. And in that small companies, Indian companies will also be included. So SMEs, on particular SMEs aspect, we have our eyes, or MSME we have our eyes. I am sorry to not take the name of Sahasra. So when he started speaking, I realized my mistake, that I am only taking name of 6. So at that time I noted this point. So in my other speeches I will include Sahasra also, because इनका भी समय आएगा sir. So SOCs are very important, and in DLI 2.0 you will see that now we are structuring it in a different way. So one way is will go towards funding a startup through VC fund. Some members said that government should not interfere much, and if a company is approved by some other VC fund and so on, the government should also put in equal partnership, so that the approval process or hurdle level are reduced. So one way of doing that in DLI 2.0 will be like that. Second will be focused approach on developing focused chips, which Satyaji and other mentioned, that we will identify government demands, safety, security, other aspects in mind, and then we will go for a dedicated SOCs. And then we will mandate, we are saying that wherever we can mandate, we will give development orders of particular SOCs. If you are not able to mandate, then how we can leverage our domestic market? So on the basis of that, we will select SOCs. And in DLI 2.0, the scope will be increased. The amount of incentive, which is 15 crore, will be increased. It will not be only limited to startups. It will be available to all domestic companies of India, as you have mentioned about other companies. So a medium level complex chips require around 150 to 200 crore, and the more complex they will be around 500 crore or more. So at least we are targeting medium level complexity chips, which is low hanging fruit for us also, and we have demand also. So probably in 2-3 months you will see a new avatar of DLI 2.0, and the money we are pulling it from ISM 1.0, whatever money we have left, it will be added to this DLI scheme and it will be enlarged. And then Semicon 2.0 will cover entire ecosystem which is there. Compound semiconductor proposals, you will also see some approvals will come during this Semicon 1.0 itself. So that ecosystem is also developing. And in next phase, I am seeing a big semiconductor plants coming. But here also in 1.0, we'll see few approvals on that. Warehousing and component hub is a need of the hour, because everybody wants a zero inventory kind of thing. And there are some challenges which were discussed earlier also. So I have to update myself on this particular point, what has been done in the recent past. But this was the item which were discussed 1.5 years back also. And we will take it also forward, because for semiconductors also it is very important. Sir has suggested that STPI can be leveraged, and that is true also, because they have expertise in all customs and regulatory clearances and how to promote things. So for startups, I will try to explore this thing particularly. EMC cluster, of course, EMC scheme was there, and there is a provision, more incentive for common facility centers also, including tests and other things. But the way it has been done, it can be improved further, because logistics is the most important thing for electronics. It has to be near to the airport. So while giving approvals, we will try to see that that is taken care of. And then plug and play infra is missing. So right now we are developing EMC and giving to land, we are allotting land to the companies. But the plug and play infra was also discussed, and we were very close to formulating a scheme. But during the last minute of the budget, somehow it missed, because it was not totally backed by all industry players. So we were trying to give this factory, ready-made built factory with plug and play infra to the companies. But it could not materialize, so we'll try to see whether it is happening or not. GEM is obviously, we have discussed it, it's not giving a fair deal to all SMEs and small players. And SMEs are also not getting government order, because government effort is half-hearted. So we have to hardcore this particular effort. And earlier also I have said on many times, and since it is not my domain, I am not able to do. And in all government procurement orders, this 5% bracket should be strictly fixed for the SMEs. If there is no SMEs, then this order can go to the big players also. But if there is a SME, it has to go to that SME, irrespective of their turnover and their other things. It will take care of everything. So that kind of thing we have to push from all sides to government, whether it is DPIIT or Ministry of Finance, Department of Expenditure. And we will also try to push from our side that 5% of the government order should be blocked in any procurement for the SMEs. And if there is no SME, then only this will be diverted back to the big players. If that will happen, then automatically government demand will start coming. So right now government intention is there, but this is not happening actually. And outreach programs are will do. And Asian Alliance is slightly a bigger idea, but since you have started this discussion, so it will come around also. In chemical, specialty chemicals and gases, there is a need of critical mass. So some chemicals will be done with 1 fab and gases, but a few chemical and gases will come with 3 fab. The critical mass for some others is 6 fab. So it is like that. So with this limited approvals, what we are having, we are seeing lot of action on the ground. At least the chemical and gases company, which were not looking this market earlier, now they have started looking this market, and they are also thinking for tie-ups and other thing. With more approvals, the demand will more demand will be generated, and with Semicon 2.0, probably critical mass will also come to have all kind of chemical and gases here. So on that direction we are working, and to attract them earlier also we will come with some incentive, so that this entire ecosystem is fast forward. This PPO, public procurement order, one more correction is required. So I'm just hinting you, and we will also try from our side, that lowest rate thing is probably not working. So QCBS is a government another norm for finalizing any tender. So wherever there is a technology product, so generally QCBS is the way to finalize tender. So we must push for that. Wherever it is lowest rate, you must push for QC-based system where the marks is given, where the approvals are first technically finalized and shortlisted, and then financial bids are open. So that is the way, and sometimes it is a combined score also, but generally that doesn't happen. But two-level scrutiny happens on the basis of QC-based system. There are many more things I have noted, but I think I would understand from Merck that what kind of regulatory barriers we are facing, because the chemical and gas ecosystem is already there, the big players are already there. Only the purity level of semiconductors is slightly high, but still if you are facing some problem, we will start working on that. I tried to ask this question from many people, but as per the input of semiconductor laboratory, they said that regulatory approvals are in place, and because this is just an upgradation, so and all chemical and gases are still available in the country, so perhaps there will not much challenge on that, but still, this is on my mind. So just please tell me, we will try to work on it.
Chemistry exists and it's more technical. If chemistry doesn't exist, then
Okay. And 1000 talent program, we always talk, and the semiconductor company also told me that unless you attract expats, and expats including Indian talents, it will be slightly difficult because the tax burden is very high on those persons. So I have just noted this point in my action plan few days back, so I will work on this. And I hope I have answered most of the question. Capital goods fronts, manufacturing of semiconductor equipment is the most complex thing in the world amongst other capital goods, and we are seeing good traction coming from applied material and lab research, and we are trying to engage with ASML also for at least start sourcing components from India. There is no success on that ground, but applied and lab and KLA, they are coming in a big way, and they have their own program in which Indian vendors, R&D team and applied material team together, they are working. Similarly, Lam Research is also doing, and they have identified 60-70 components manufacturers from India, and now they will start manufacturing components, sub-assemblies and few equipments which are not that critical, and later on probably maybe after 2 or 3 years after, we will see some manufacturing also of complete equipment will happen. So with this, I will thank all of you for inviting me here, and continuously will work. It's a teamwork. You and government and private sector and industry, academia, everybody should discuss, and then on the basis of input we should work on that. And as the culture of METI is to understand with you, whenever we will come with this product design incentive scheme, at least 100-150 meetings will be held before that to understand the requirement of the industry and how to structure. You will suggest that what is the good way to structure all these things. Without that, we never come up with any kind of PLI scheme or incentive scheme. So when that discussion will start, obviously we'll call everybody and we'll try to understand startups, SMEs, big players, middle players. We'll have separate meetings with all the companies. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
सर एक चीज़ रह गई, मैं बताना भूल गया। इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में ई-वेस्ट को आप जरूर देखिए, एक बहुत बड़ी इशू है, और राइट टू रिपेयर जो पॉलिसी है ग्लोबली, उसको अगर हम वी शुड स्टार्ट लुकिंग एट दैट विद कंज्यूमर अफेयर्स मिनिस्ट्री, बिकॉज दिस इज India is the third largest e-waste country in the world. This needs a look by IT, because METI has to lead that effort. Consumer affairs is a new buyer.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Amitesh ji. I think this has been a wonderful discussion. If you have any other issues, you can obviously send it over. And as Amitesh ji said, this is not the end of the discussion. This is probably just the start.
Correct.
And there will be marathon meetings and discussions that will happen. It's just the start. I would like to thank you again, Amitesh ji, and thank each one of you for coming out on a Saturday afternoon and spending over 2.5 hours over here. So deeply appreciate your time and the inputs and interventions that you've given. There's also tea served before you leave, so you can have the tea. But before that, I would request Advocate Bharat Desai to hand over a small memento to our Chief Guest. The other one.